The UK wants to be a serious player in AI, a sovereign player. But lately, that ambition hit a bit of a setback when OpenAI cancelled its plans to build Stargate UK, a massive data centre project in the UK. And you have to admit that this does seem a little bit embarrassing, doesn't it? Because we literally laid out the red carpet for these guys. As Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, at the state dinner for President Trump last September. This is where the deal was struck, and now it's not happening. Which seems bad, right? But when I started to dig into this, actually, it seemed a bit more complicated. So OpenAI blamed regulatory uncertainty and high energy costs in the UK. And there's no doubt about it. UK energy is expensive, some of the most expensive in any developed country. But look here. This is when OpenAI announced Stargate. What happened between there and there to change their minds? And what happened between there and here? They didn't get the message that UK energy is expensive. And then when I dug into this further, I found that as soon as OpenAI cancelled Stargate, Alphabet, the owner of Google, swooped in to buy those chips. Interesting, right? There is actually demand to build here, despite the high energy costs. And that's what this chart shows en masse. This is a chart of the value of data center construction projects that have received full planning approval. And this is a chart in millions. So this is £10 billion. £10 billion of people saying, yep, we want to build here. We know your energy costs are high. We still want to do it. And you see this, and it makes you think that maybe Stargate and everything that happened around it was more about OpenAI than it was about the UK. That's what my reporting suggests, to be honest. Except in one way. Because I think that the Stargate story does tell us something about the UK. We're very good at announcing things, but we do have a problem getting them built. That's what this chart shows. This is a chart of the value of the projects that have actually started construction. And you can see, A, it's not even going up really at all, and B, that is a massive gap. That right there is the gap between ambition and reality. And if we zoom in, we see the same thing. This is a chart of what's being built in London, this time in terms of gigawatts. This is where we currently are, and this is where we're projected to be by 2030 by CBRE, a kind of very respected analyst in this area, who's given me these figures. And this is the government's target for AI capacity by 2030. London, which is where these numbers are for, is the UK's key data centre market. It's where everyone wants to be. And the gap between reality and ambition here is very large. So why is this? What's really going on? You know, this is what you never get into, I think, in these stories. And I'm going to try and explain it, even though it's a little complicated, so bear with me. I think the place to look at is this place, Slough. This is where these grand strategic plans and these ideas about sovereignty and being a serious player in AI really hit the local, very local bottleneck. Slough is actually Europe's #1 data centre hub. That's where everyone wants to plug in to serve their customers in London. But right now, it's almost impossible to build there. And this is why you can't build there. This is a map of the local substations in the Slough area. The simple way to think about them is basically they're like plug sockets for the grid. And this, over 66 kV, is where all the data centres want to plug in. But there just isn't enough capacity there to manage that. It's just simply impossible to get into the grid. The grid is the bottleneck, and the bottleneck for the grid is extremely, extremely local. And there is actually a massive upgrade of IVA going on right now. It's called Uxbridge Moor. I mean, this thing I think will be the biggest substation in the UK, the most powerful substation in the UK when it's built by 2029. But even after this is finished, there still won't be anything close to enough capacity for all those data centre projects. And remember, this is literally the system that keeps the lights on. You simply cannot plug in these power stations in the way you might want to without putting the resilience of the grid in danger. That would mean blackouts, outages, all that sort of thing. So what does this mean? I think what it has to mean in practice is that the UK's data centre ambitions have to be dispersed around the country. And the government is actually already doing that. This is part of the map for research data centres, research compute. And you can see it's all over the place. This is by design, because the only way to get these things into the grid is to put them around the country. And the other thing I think that it has to mean is that things go a bit slower than the government really wants. In a way, this chart could tell you the whole story here. Because what we've got here is that this is the power that data centres want from the national grid. This is 50 gigawatts, which is a simply ridiculous amount of power. This is basically equivalent to the peak capacity of the entire grid right now. So that's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that the national grid is building about 19 gigawatts of power now. Also, an enormous amount. This will be the biggest upgrade to the grid for 50 or 60 years. And it's going to cost in the order of about 30 billion. And my understanding, based on my reporting, this is not exactly that precise, so I don't need to take this too seriously, but my understanding is that of this 19 gigawatts, 10 will be given over to data centres. And you can see, that's above this line. The government should hit its target for AI compute in time. So, if you think about it, what have we learnt here? Well, we've learnt that actually people do want to build in the UK, and that UK institutions are responding. They're building too. But it's just simply incredibly hard to do this stuff. And the question is, will it happen quickly enough? Will the physical limits of infrastructure prevent the UK being a properly sovereign power in AI?